Hey everyone, we are live with the second Dr. November. People may have given up on us because we're like 13 minutes late going live. And we're going late because we have some sound issues that we cannot fix. So Randy is going to stay sort of muted. Jim is, for whatever reason, very, very quiet. Not quiet, but his sound level is very low, and we're not sure the reasons why, the technical problems. But there we have it.
I think we might have to mute. We might have to mute Jim as well because I can hear the echo back as well.
Yeah. So Jim, if you want to talk, like hold up your hand and wave, and we'll make sure that we're not talking.
I'm just curious if the people out there can hear me at normal volume.
Good point. If you can, leave a comment. I'm going to mute you right now. Okay, Mark. So I think Randy wants to be unmuted for a second. And I can't unmute him. Is it muted on your end, Randy, if you wanted to talk? Nope.
Well, I just muted myself because Elvis was barking. But I guess, well, I mean, let's start. We've all had like a week since the last live, so I'm just curious what people have read, maybe. So perhaps we can start with maybe Randy and then go around, and then
yes,
we can just be quiet while
I'm gonna you are not muted. No, are you muted? I think you're muted on your end. So
yeah, I think Randy's muted himself. So.
I'm unmuted now. So, you guys now have an echo since we went live. So that's pretty exciting. So in terms of what I've been reading, I am about halfway through with The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, and I'm loving it so far. And I have Casino Royale sitting there on the table, ready to be read when I finish that. Although I've got to work in the city, which is not a spy novel. But that's where I am with the espionage stuff right now. But yeah, I've never read John le Carré before. It's wonderful. I'm loving it.
Okay. All right. So, Mark, what have you been reading?
Yeah. Well, I haven't restarted Spy Who Came From the Cold yet. I'm going to listen to it on audio because I only read it last year. However, I've been reading nonfiction this week, and I finished a book called Russian Roulette by Giles Milton, which was about the early days of British secret agents in Russia just at the time of the revolution. And it was really exciting. I have to say, really, like, just the balls on those people, right? And I will say balls because most of them in the story are actually men. There are a couple of women who kind of like do the supporting roles and like courier and things like that. Still extremely dangerous work. But they're real, like, Edwardian swashbuckling gentleman adventurer kind of things. And that sent me down a rabbit hole after I finished that. And I've started reading some of the books published by the people who appeared in this book that was about all of them in general. So like there's Arthur Ransom. I don't know if he's well known in America, but he wrote a very famous children's book called Swallows and Amazons, and a whole series. And he was actually like a journalist in Russia before the revolution and afterwards. And in his book called 6 Weeks in Russia, he interviews all the big players, and that's fascinating. And he becomes quite friendly with them. But the really weird thing is, I'm reading it and I'm looking people up on Wikipedia, like all the Bolsheviks, and it's terrible. It's like 80% of the people in the book end up being shot by Stalin anyway, right? So it's pretty grim. And then the other one is called Red Dusk and the Morrow, and it's by a guy called Sir Paul Dukes, who was the only British spy that actually got knighted for his services directly due to being a field agent in espionage. And his story is incredible. He's known as the man of 1,000 faces. He was kind of brought up in Russia before the revolution as a British expat family, and he goes back undercover, and it's just thrilling stuff. Amazing. But that's my reading so far this week.
Cool. Okay. I guess this is how we're going to do it. Is if once you're done speaking, we're just going to mute. So, Jim, why don't you try saying what you've been doing, and people in the comments, if his sound is really low, just let us know.
Yeah. So I finished Sam Durrell. I've actually been reading really slow. So I've only made it like 2 books this week. Like, these are part of my Read What You Own challenge. So I read Sam Durrell, The Girl in the Gondola. Well written, but the plot was not that good. Sam Durrell. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I've got like 20 of these. I'm hoping they're not all as, it's not that it was bad. The plot, the character had a tendency to be away from the main events. Twice in the story, some other character went and did the main event where he was just distracting bad guys and getting beaten up, you know? But I mean, other than that, it was actually really well written. I mean, he evokes a nice atmosphere. His characters are well drawn. So, I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm just hoping that the other books are a little bit better plot wise. And I'm with Randy. I'm about halfway through The Spy Who Loved Me. It's the first time I've written or read Le Carré. Really good. I'm enjoying it a lot, you know. And yeah, so that's it for me. That's my update. I love the character of Lemus in here. You know, I'm really, it just draws me right in. I've got a love for loner, you know, bedraggled, loner, disheveled characters, and Lemus kind of fits the bill, I think. So hopefully you guys heard me okay.
Yeah, the volume's a little low, but we got to muddle through what we got.
Yeah.
And Jim, I think you need to turn your mic off when we're hearing, because we're still hearing this echo. Okay. Sorry about the sound, folks. We don't know what's going on. For me, I read Dr. No this week. That is the second James Bond I've read for this event. Technically, I read Casino Royale the week before the event started. And what I like about it is that the James Bond in the books is nothing like the James Bond in the film. He's a lot more rough around the edges, and he's a lot less superhuman than what you would get in the film. There, without giving spoilers, he really only gets into physical danger towards the end when he is put through a let's just say an obstacle course that the Dr. No, you know, basically wants him to die in a horrible way just because he wants him to die in a horrible way, and he has to get out of it. But that's the one I read, and I think I still preferred Casino Royale to this one. The only other James Bond I read was Live and Let Die, but that was like 10 years ago. So I can't trust my memory on that one. And next week, I will be starting The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. It will probably be the fourth time I've read this book. Like Jim was saying, Lemus just comes across as very authentic of what you would imagine a real spy is like. It's like this is what spies really do. He ran the spy network, coming in and out of East Germany, and things just went all cattywampus. And now they have this other plot. And what's amazing for people who have not read this is a George Smiley book. And the character of George Smiley appears in maybe 4 pages of this book, but he's all over it.
I don't know if that means much to Jim and Randy, though. If you haven't read Le Carre much before,
Right.
George Smiley is like the main kind of spy. Well, I guess spy masters, maybe the right word. He's just a very important character especially in a trilogy that comes a bit later on after this. But he appears in the book that you're reading, and even though he, as Greg was saying, he's in it for like 3 or 4 pages. He's really integral. And if you go on and read more Le Carre and you read Tinker Tailor, Soldier Spy, and The Honorable Schoolboy, and Smiley's People, then you start to understand more why perhaps he's so important. He's like completely the opposite of James Bond, but he is a much more believable spy, probably.
Yes, I mean, and that's what I really like is like, even reading the book, I get the picture of a very short, squat, overweight man who's just huge glasses. And what amazed me when I did Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is that everything he does is basically through correspondence and reading reports and solving all these issues. And he's the brilliant backroom detective.
Yeah,
So
but
anyone else?
his backstory is like the one that's really amazing, because they wouldn't have mentioned it in this. I don't know how much they mention it in Tinker Tailor, but certainly in others, that his wartime service was really dangerous. Yeah, I mean, he was in Nazi Germany as a spy, and of course that would take a lot of balls, really. But yeah.
Yes.
But you guys jump in, just unmute yourselves,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
when you want to talk, you got to hold up your hand. So we encourage you guys to sit and talk about things, but we're trying to keep the sound. Oh, does Jim want to say something?
Is it just me, or did what was the librarian's name, Miss Crail? Did she call Lemus a lame ass, or am I imagining that? Remember? She misspelled his name, and Lemus walks over to her and says, "It's Lea, and there's only one S." He says to her. I thought that was funny, and I'm not sure if that was the intention, but that's what I got from it.
I don't remember that particular detail.
Yeah, well, look for it.
I will.
That's what I got from it. There's a little bit of an underlying sense of humor throughout the book, and it's to relieve a bit of the heaviness of it. It's so heavy so far, and he's such just a discouraged character. I think there just had to be little bits of humor in there, which I thought was brilliant. He's really a good writer. I'll mute myself now.
Yeah, I think John le Carre doesn't get all the credit he should of just being a good writer, because people say, "Oh, he's writing espionage novels. There's something not as good as pure literature." But I think le Carre really brings up the game to the spy story, and I think he can hold muster with a lot of very famous literary writers. Oh, good, Jim.
If you read the introduction in the new copy that Randy and I have, le Carre talks about that. When he first wrote it, he never intended it to, like, it wasn't representing anything real. But everybody, when it came out, they thought this is the way it must be. He must have lived that. This is the way it was. And le Carre just said, "No, I just kind of made this up. This isn't how it was. This is just how I imagined it was." From his imagination. It wasn't real life, but it was so well written that people read it. Yeah, this is the way it was. Espionage in the spy world.
Okay, Mark.
I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, Jim, on Discord, but probably I would wait because you haven't finished. But I shared an interview with John le Carre where he actually discusses the history of the book and how he came to write it. It's like a 40-minute interview, and what surprised me was like he kind of got. Well, I suppose maybe it doesn't surprise me, but he got shafted really on the rights for it. Yeah, from I don't know if it was Paramount or when they made the film. I mean, he sold it for only £9,000, which maybe at the time was a fair bit of money, but it really was quite cheap. So, and yeah, he really goes into detail as well about how, you know, he came to write the book and his experiences with that.
Go, Randy.
So I noticed the conversation with the librarian too, where he pointed out that there was only one S in the name, but I didn't make the connection. I didn't bother to pronounce it. I was like, wow, that's a nice little bit of dialogue there. But you know, he sure is being funny about his name, but I could never figure out how to pronounce Lemus. I was trying to make it complicated. Leamus? I don't know how Irish people talk.
Occam's razor, whatever simplest, just Lemus. I just got Lemus from him. That's all, you know. Which is just an unassuming name. It's perfect for that character.
Yeah, I remember as Lemus because the first time I read the book was an audiobook. So I just had the narrator just say Lemus. So I was never
I'm curious, has either Randy or Jim actually seen the film, even if they haven't read the book before?
I've not seen any of these films based on the Le Carré novels. Although I've heard of George Smiley and Smiley's people, because I guess isn't Alec Guinness? Doesn't he play him in some of the movies? And of course, Alec Guinness was Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, you know, I'm at a certain age where that's my Obi-Wan Kenobi anyway.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I've never seen the movies, but when I do hear the name George Smiley, I do picture it as Alec Guinness because he's so famous as that character. So yeah, but I'm anxious to watch the movies now because he was in a TV series too. I think there was a movie, and then he played the same character in a TV series, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a series first. They made a series of Tinker Tailor. Well, they made a film of was The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, and I forget who plays George Smiley in that for the brief period.
That was, oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Yep.
But obviously Richard Burton plays Lemus. And then in the late 70s, they made this series of Tinker Tailor with Alec Guinness as George Smiley. And then there was the second book, which is The Honourable Schoolboy, which they didn't film. I think partly because of the logistics and things. It would be quite a difficult one to film. And then they did make Smiley's People, I think, in about 1981, 82, something like that. Again, with Alec Guinness as Smiley. And then they remade Tinker Tailor back in, was it 2010, 2012, where they had Gary Oldman as George Smiley. And I don't know. I mean, Alec Guinness is just one of those. I mean, it's different with the Star Wars films because, of course, they're making him younger. But when it's a character like George Smiley, I couldn't imagine anybody else doing it.
Yeah, I have the link that you sent me to that miniseries. Now, the only problem is this is my real device to watch movies on, and it's just too small. Because
Sorry, I don't know why I'm muted because I can interrupt you, Greg, because there's no echo with us. But
no, you can interrupt me because there's no echo between you and me. It's just Randy and Jim.
You don't watch on your computer then instead, or
I guess I could, but I don't.
But I was going to say, Jim and Randy, I think I shared it to the Discord. So because I would say well, you might want to read the book first, of course, because it's one of these big reveal situations. But I actually saw the series as a child before I read the book, so I knew who the person was even when I read the book. But it's still so wonderful that it didn't impact my enjoyment. But if you do want to see it, Tinker Tailor, I shared the link for the YouTube. There's a playlist for all 6 episodes that it's there, and it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I feel ready maybe to watch it, but I said I also have to find time to watch it because it's like I have a TV upstairs. I could theoretically watch YouTube on, but my wife's working during the day, and she's not going to want me to watch a TV show on when she's in her office and having business meetings, and so it's just sort of practical.
Put headphones in, watch it.
I guess. All right. We have a number of comments here. I'm going to go through and I'm not going to read comments, people talking back to each other. I'm just going to try to read the comments when people are mentioning something sort of relevant. We have Sten reading The Honorable Schoolboy, one of the few Le Carré books I've read that I haven't ever reread. That's next on my list. I have it on my Kindle, but I think I actually want to listen to the audiobook first. So I get the main storyline down, and then I can reread the book and start picking out all those nuggets that he's put in there that are going to be really interesting. And the first time is just get the plot down.
I don't know who reads the audiobooks in America, but in the UK, it's Michael Jaston. I don't know if he did the. Did you listen to Tinker Tailor, Greg, or did you read it?
I just read it.
Yeah, but it's fun because Michael Jaston, who, as I say, narrates most of Le Carré's audiobooks, at least on UK Audible. I imagine it's probably the same. I doubt the Americans will change to an American narrator for a British novel.
Probably not.
But he's actually in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy series, and he's in Smiley's People. I know he's not in Smiley's People, so he's not, but he's in Tinker Tailor. So he plays the character Peter Gwilym.
Okay.
In the series, and he's also the narrator of the books. So yeah,
I am looking forward to it. And go through claim to fame. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Stalin. My dad was a refugee in 1956 due to Stalinism.
Not many people can say that, I imagine. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Stalin.
Well, my father was living in Paris when Germany invaded. So he got out of town. I think he lost Randy.
No, he's back now.
So I say I owe my life to Hitler because he invaded France. It's kind of a stretch. I mean, it's true, but kind of a stretch or two. We lost Randy.
No, Randy's here. Oh, no, okay, he's gone now.
Let's add the stage. There we go. He's back.
It's like disappearing actor.
I have no idea what's going on with this back end stuff today.
I didn't touch anything.
Hey, wait a second. Nope. Still an echo.
Okay.
Oh, Jim.
Do you guys hear an echo if I'm talking, if I have my mic on? Because a couple MJ said that they can hear me okay.
Interesting. No, I still hear an echo.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I mean, I think they can hear you probably if they have earphones in. But the problem is your sound, just like Randy's, is absolutely fine for yourselves, apart from you're a bit quiet. But the problem is every time Greg and I speak, we hear ourselves back.
Okay.
And it's the mundane dailiness of it that really works so well. Oh, wait a second. I didn't read Spy Who Came In this time because I've lost track of how many times I've read it since the 1970s. Well, it's a book that's well worth reading and rereading. I love his voice, one of the best stylists of his generation. John Le Carré lived among the cliffs from West Cornwall, but I said that last. That's right. He kind of a neighbor. Jim, do you have a separate plug in the microphone? Someone's asking a technical. I guess Stan was saying he's not going to criticize Guinness, but Oldman was great too in the later movie. The only problem with Guinness is he can't be the man you don't remember when he walks out of the room. Stan, I was disappointed with Schoolboy when it came out, and I'm waiting to see if I was wrong. I'm so far loving it.
Yeah, I think The Honorable Schoolboy is a weird one. It's quite different in tone from the other two, but there's something good about it. I guess I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It might actually be my favorite of the three.
Okay, because I have read Lecrae's first two Smiley books, which are really more mysteries than spy not. Although the character of Munt appears in the first book as well.
Mm.
Do you ever read the first two?
Yeah, I've read all of them up to Smiley's People.
Okay.
I think there's only two after that, maybe, but I don't think he's a major character. I think is it Secret Pilgrim maybe or Our Game he's in, but I need to read the last two with Smiley in. So I was thinking of Randy because Randy, I was watching your 20 best books, and I was so thrilled after. I don't know if we did it during the live with Steve last week, but certainly we were having a discussion about it, which was the Quiet American. And Steve doesn't rate it. He doesn't rate Graham Greene at all, and he didn't like the film either. But I have to say, Randy, I was with you. I enjoyed the film. I thought it was a good adaptation of the book, and I'm not a huge fan of Michael Caine or Brendan Fraser, but I thought they did a good job.
You know, there's an older version of the movie too, and I haven't seen the older version, but I understand that the perspective on it's really, really different.
I have read the book.
I love the book. I can't wait to read more Graham Greene.
I would recommend Randy. It's not quite in the espionage realm, but I really enjoy his collected essays. I thought I'd pull that out for you because it's nice to dip in and out of Graham Greene's just shorter writings, and they're really interesting.
I've read a few Graham Greene. I've read The Quiet American, Brighton Rock. I thought there was another one of Graham Greene's that I read before, but we'll have to see. So okay, let's move off from Le Carré and talk a little bit. Who's read some of the Bond novels and what people think of them?
I've read and reread. Can you hear me? Okay.
It's a little low, but I'm just going to hold my ear to the speaker.
Okay. I've read all the Bond novels since high school. I read Diamonds Are Forever, From Russia with Love, and Dr. No. And after those three, I was hooked. I just bought all of them, read them all through, and I've reread them. Like I think they're awesome books. He doesn't get a lot of love nowadays, though. Fleming, he's not. You know, he gets a lot of flack now, but I just love them. And it's because of Fleming that I got into Raymond Chandler, because Bond in I think Diamonds Are Forever, he's sitting on the plane and he's reading a Raymond Chandler novel. And as a kid, I'm thinking, okay, who's this Raymond Chandler guy? And I picked up a Chandler book and I was hooked on Chandler. And from that point, it was just all, all downhill or uphill, depending on your point of view. Yeah, but they are brilliant books. I love the Bond books.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really enjoying them. Like you said, I think his books have just become eclipsed by the movie versions. I mean, it just people just want the movie version in that book, and you don't get it. And I said, at least in America, it's like they've re-edited all of his books to take out. And what's really curious is in Casino Royale, there's the main villain, the Cipher or whatever his name is, and he's criticizing Bond for playing Red Indians. And I read that in a unedited book, and I said, well, they're going to cut that out. And then I went to the store to look it up, and they didn't. And I'm going like, no, wait a second. You have an overt racist term, and you didn't edit it out. So what are they really editing out of these books? and then I read Dr. No, and okay, he uses a racial slur in that book. So maybe that's only one or two racial. I mean, they're cherry picking the racial slurs that they keep. I don't know.
To be honest, though, I find the standard of editing so terrible these days that they probably just missed Red Indian.
Go, Randy. So I read all the James Bond books when I was still in high school because they had every single one of them in my high school library. It was so cool. And even then, even as a teenager, and I was not a particularly perceptive reader as a teenager, although for Bonham, Texas, maybe I was, I don't know. But even as a teenager, I could tell this is not the same character in the books as it is in the movies. And these books are far, far better. I've never liked any of the James Bond movies, which is really strange because I'd love to watch a franchise with like 25 movies in it. But it just doesn't matter which James Bond I start with. I just can't get into it. And that's all I have to say about that.
It seems like that should be a segment on your channel, Randy, the way you do that. Each week, just do a 2-minute rant, and that's all I got to say about that, y'all.
I was like, when I was reading Dr. No, there's a character named Honeychild. And in the book, she is rather young. And in the movie, they got like I think in the book she's still in her teens or something like that. You know, not of legal age, but of course when they made the movie, they had to bump her age up a bit.
I think the interesting thing, because I don't know, it doesn't seem like any of you guys have touched on nonfiction yet, or if you're going to, you might not. But I did allow that to be in there, and it's interesting reading. The ones that I've been reading this week is just trying to match up all these different people, because you can see that Le Carré and Fleming have actually taken, elements from these real people and put them into those characters they created. I mean, there's one guy in Russia in 1917, 1918 called George Hill, and he's short. He's plump. He wears glasses, and you think, "Oh, his name's George." Obviously, it could be to some degree a model for Smiley. Although he does do something very unsmiley-ish, which is he's being trailed one night by two thugs from the Checker, and they attack him, and he stabs one of them to death with his sword stick. He's carrying his cane, and he turns around to whack him, and the guy grabs the cane, but of course he pulls out the sword and stabs him to death. That's what I mean. This is real life. Yeah, this isn't like this isn't a Bond book or a Le Carré book. This is a nonfiction, and yet it's just so. I don't know. It's just crazy for me. It's brilliant.
I'm going to be reading a Ben McIntyre book.
Oh, perfect. He's great.
I've read two other, the Operation Mincemeat, which was about planning for the D-Day, if I'm not mistaken, and all the subterfuge they had to get it out. Like there was a body they planted with documents with like fake invasion plans. And that was a great story. And then he had a book called The Spy and the Traitor. And in real life, there was a Soviet agent in Moscow. And he was feeding information to either Britain or England or, one of them. I think both, because he was outed by Aldrich Ames. He's the American spy who got caught selling secrets. So once he was outed, the British or the Americans, they wanted to get their man out because, he'd been doing them stuff. So this whole big scheme of how you get someone out of the Soviet Union at that period. It was really well done. My wife listened to it, and I listened as an audio book when you're on a road trip, and was like, no, we're at our destination. We have to stop. So, Jim?
No, it's okay, Greg. You keep going.
So as I said, I'm really looking forward to Agent Sonia, which, as I understand it, is that I guess there was a British woman who was working for the Soviets.
Well, she's not British, but yeah, doesn't matter.
Well, living in England, I think.
Yeah. She's living in England. She's living in England at the time, but she's not British born.
Okay.
Not that it makes a difference. I mean, Philby was British born. Well, at least British nationality. I can't remember if he was actually born in Britain or born in some imperial land. But
have any of you guys read A Man Called Intrepid about William Stevenson? Now William Stevenson was like a spy master. Ian Fleming worked for him, under him, and they had, like, I'm in Canada. I'm up in Canada, and they had a spy school in Oshawa. And I read A Man Called Intrepid years ago, but it's highly recommended if you guys look into that. Fascinating story.
Okay.
Around World War II time. And it's due for a reread for me because, like I say, it was years ago I read that book. But yeah, look into it.
yeah, I can see it. It was actually a mini series as well, back in the late 70s.
I think Randy wants to say something.
I'm going to digress for just a second to let you know that I just hit 700 subscribers.
Excellent.
While we were talking here.
Well, lives help you get subscribers sometimes.
That's true. And of course, anyone who's not subscribed to Jim, unfortunately, Jim, you didn't put your channel name up there. But you should head over to his channel. I think it's in the description, probably, isn't it, Greg? Or maybe?
No, it's not in the description because he was a latecomer.
Okay. So it will be, though, Jim, if people watch it back later. But it's Mystery and Mayhem. Is that right? Yeah. Mystery and Mayhem. Check Jim out. Wonderful channel and always fantastic backgrounds. Every time when you got up earlier, I thought, you've got the Leslie Klinger Sherlock Holmes books here. I'm so jealous.
Sorry. And I have the W.S. Baring Gould annotated Sherlock Holmes as well.
I'm even more jealous now.
It took me forever to find those. But yeah, I'm happy to have them. Beautiful books.
Yeah, Michael K. Vaughan did a video where he showed his editions of the Klinger. And I put them on my sort of Amazon list to watch, but they're really kind of expensive, and I have to decide, are they worth the cost? And maybe Jim can chime in and say,
well, I got these ages ago when they were at the store. So I think I just got them for like the cover price, whatever that was at the time. $47.50 for one of them. So I guess they'd all be about the same price. But now I don't know what they'd be.
One problem I had with them is because I looked into getting them, and annoyingly, I think it's something like two of them are only available in paperback and one of them's in hardback, or one of them had a slipcase and two of them didn't, or vice versa. And I'm thinking, why have they done this? Yeah, because I'm obviously not gonna buy one if the other two are different, or you know what I mean. So nah,
No,
just
I'm
got
with
the
you,
ebook.
Mark. For a book like that, you want them to look good on your shelves, not
Yeah,
because the text is free. I can just go to public domain and get my Sherlock Holmes. Now, speaking of Sherlock Holmes, in the Voxer group last week, Steve Donahue mentioned the story "The Second Stain" that we all should read. Now, I went ahead and reread "The Second Stain." Did you reread it, Mark?
no, I didn't do my homework, but don't tell Steve.
Now, my curious thing
Randy's
was,
a bad influence on me, so I just slacked off.
do you remember that story, Mark?
No, I don't remember The Second Stain at all. Although it did crop up in something the other day, but not just this, something else I was listening to. They started talking about it, but no.
My question was, is like, it would not make the top Sherlock Holmes stories for me. I mean, it was okay. It was written, I think, when Doyle was like, "Oh, I got to pump out another Holmes story," and the thing is, it sort of had an espionage tint to it, where there is a letter that could cause a war if it got into the wrong hands. And I
Oh,
get,
what am I doing? I'm so stupid, Greg. I did well. Funny enough, before Steve mentioned, now you're talking about this. I did listen to it. I listened to it on the Stephen Fry thing literally 2 weeks ago. Yeah, you got it there.
yeah. And I said, I have that Fry audio, and that's really he really does a great narration job on that.
I don't know how he keeps up with all the accents. You know, changing his voices and stuff. I mean, obviously he repeats occasionally, but I mean, it's just incredible. You know, it's funny that there isn't a Sherlock Holmes event. I mean, I know you got limited work, of course, by the author, but there's so much Holmes related stuff. You really could do an entire event based around Holmes and pastiches and all this kind of stuff. I think Randy's gonna make one, right, Randy? Or Jim? You fancy it?
I thought there was Sherlocktober.
There is now.
Okay, well, you know, my favorite Sherlock Holmes pastiche is The Adventures of Solar Ponds. I don't know if anybody's heard of Solar Ponds besides me, but August Derleth is most famous for popularizing H.P. Lovecraft. Wrote a series of stories, and in fact wrote more stories about solar ponds than Sherlock Holmes. And they're wonderful. They're really good. But he had gone to Conan Doyle and said, "Hey, I'd like to take over the character," because Doyle was old and he was young and looking for something to make his name with. And Doyle said, "You know, I appreciate it. Thanks, but no thanks." But in the world of solar ponds, he's familiar with Sherlock Holmes. He knows who he is. I'm not sure that he realizes that he's based on Sherlock Holmes. It's not that meta, but it's pretty meta. But anyway, yeah, Solar Ponds is great stuff. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, those are great stories. I have them in paperback. I love those. And then a writer, Basil Copper, took over the series and carried on with it. Yeah, and those are very cool. And he lives in the Sherlock Holmes universe, and he is aware of Sherlock Holmes.
I don't tend to read a lot of anything when someone else takes over a character from another author. Now, there's one book that I've been sort of tempted on Sherlock Holmes. It was Dan Simmons wrote a novel where Sherlock Holmes is a character. And I guess in the book that Sherlock Holmes realizes, wait a second, I'm a fictional character. And I've been sort of tempted because that's getting very metafictional and saying, would he be able to determine, yeah, wait a second, I don't exist. I'm in someone else's story.
Well, we read well, I can't remember now if it was earlier this year. Was it back in March or was it last year? With Alan, we read that charming Final Solution, which was
Yes.
which was a Sherlock Holmes tribute. Really, it was great. I really enjoyed it.
I mean, that's one of the rare. But he also took Sherlock Holmes towards the very end of his life.
Yeah, he was like well over 80, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was just. But he did that well.
I don't know if you guys have read it, Jim or Andy, but Michael Chabon, he wrote. It's a novella, isn't it? Really,
It's
or
120 pages, maybe.
under what? 120 pages. Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
120 pages. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's called a terrible title of like The Final Solution, but we used to call it the Parrot Book because they had a parrot on this, and it's in the story. But it's brilliant. It's set during the Second World War, I guess. Is that right?
Yes, because like you said, he's really old at the time.
He's almost 90 at least, and he's retired to this village, and he gets kind of pulled out. Yeah, because there's a Jewish boy refugee, isn't it?
Yes.
That he gets involved to help. But it's a charming little novella. It's really, really worth checking out if you haven't read it. And 120 pages, you'll get it read in a couple of hours. So
I'm wondering if it was included in an anthology somewhere because it sounds familiar, but there's been so many similarly written Sherlock Holmes stories that it's kind of hard to remember them all because that sounds so familiar to me. But then again, that kind of story has been written a few times where he retires to the Sussex Downs and, he's old, he's an old man, he's retired. Somebody seeks him out looking for his help. And it's been done a few times. There's so many pastiches out there on Sherlock Holmes now. It's unbelievable. And I wish I could get them all, but there's just too many.
But I think we should look into doing something about it, though. It could be fun.
Yeah, I would love it. It's always what I've had in mind. I mean, I think if I'm ever going to do any kind of a tag or anything, it's going to be a Sherlock Holmes thing. I'd love to be involved in that. That would be awesome.
Well, I think we have the makings. Now we have to think about when we're going to launch this event. When would be a good time? You don't want to do March because that's March of the Mammoths. You don't want to do.
However, though, it is March. You see, the thing is, sometimes to combine these events can be good. It is March of the Mammoths. However, it's also March Mystery Madness. So you could, like I found with this, I have quite a lot of things going on. Dr. November, I have nonfiction November. There's Raiding Project Gutenberg. All things I wanted to do, but they all fit in. I can read one book and it fits all three events, right?
Right.
And I suppose technically, if you did do like a something to do with Sherlock Holmes, we'd have to come up with a clever name for March. Then it does fit in with March Mystery Madness as well, right?
But then you're taking away. You're sort of taking away from March Mystery Madness, where you could be reading like Chandler or the.
Right, but you could do both. But anyway, it might be.
Well, I said you don't, but maybe February. What goes on in February?
Fantasy February is going on in February.
Okay.
I don't know if I can host 2 events in 1 month.
Are you hosting?
Yes. Fantasy February. It's going to be huge. That's all I have to say about that for now.
I think that's a new event. I think there used to be one run by the Bookish Bryants that you were focusing on a short fantasy, like short stories and short novels. I don't know if that's going to be the same thing or it's just a reboot.
It's new.
I was just watching Mark's face when you said Fantasy February, and Mark just. I know Mark's not a very big fan of fantasy novels stories.
No, you're absolutely right. But it just occurred to me that I wonder when Sherlock Holmes's birthday is because there's such a thing connected with him. So I Googled it. His birthday is January 6th.
Ah.
So we could do it in January.
Could.
Again, is that the W.S. Baring Gould birth date, or is that the Leslie Klinger birth date? It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, honestly. It's a whole kettle of fish you're opening up right now. But we'll go with January 6th.
I don't even know. It says Memorial Hall Library was the first thing that came up. So
there's like at least 3 biographies have been back here behind me, and they all have different time frames of the stories, different birth dates. It's it's a whole game that they play.
it seems Klinger. It says Klinger settles on 1854, January 6th.
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Well, we'll have to come up with a title. The Adventure of the January Detective or something like that.
So if anyone ever wonders how BookTube events get born, you've just witnessed the process.
All spontaneous goodness.
But it does link in. I mean, there's, as you mentioned, there's the second stain. It's an espionage story. There's the Bruce
Partington plans.
Yeah.
Submarine plans. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a spy story, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm really thinking that if we do this next year, I think we just throw it open, have espionage from all eras, because there's so much going on. Really, it's interesting. I mean, even because it seems like concentrating on Europe and the Cold War in terms of Russia, but Vietnam, there's the espionage involved, even of course in the Quiet American. And stuff going on there with China and whatnot. So there's loads. It's a huge area.
Well, I started to read Joseph Conrad's The Secret Agent, and then I realized, no, this isn't the time frame that Dr. No-vember is talking about. So I scrapped that one for now. But yeah, that's not a bad idea. Just open it up for all time frames.
I really like The Secret Agent, and I've been meaning to reread that. Oh, yeah. Along with Under Western Eyes.
By Conrad as well?
By Conrad.
Oh, okay.
Now, Under Western Eyes could maybe fit, because it's right at the time of the Russian Revolution. Or is it before?
Before, I think it's like 1909. I think it's after the 1905 revolution in Russia, but it's before the October or the March-October revolutions in 1917.
Yeah, because I thought Conrad died before then, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember when he died. But Secret Agent's good, and of course, it's actually free on Audible, Greg. So
I have a free Audible, and I have a free Kindle that matches up, so I can read my Kindle edition while listening to the audiobook.
Are you on Jim? Are you on Voxer?
No, I don't know what Voxer is. To tell you the truth. I hear you guys mention it, but I'm not too sure what that is.
It's the communication tool of choice for booktubers more, I guess. So and of course some subscribers who get involved with some events. Now a lot of people are moving towards this Discord, which I really like. I have to say, I notice certain members of our group. I haven't seen Randy on our Discord yet for Dr. No-vember, and certain Mr. Donahue, I don't know. He can't even get on StreamYard, so it's. Well, he can get on it. To be fair, actually, he's been more successful than you two actually getting on the StreamYard without any problems, but he won't. He doesn't know how to run his own StreamYard, so
I feel awful about that. Like I looked in my email like 1:45, and I finally found the email in my junk mail, and then once I finally got on, then just all these audio problems. I don't understand what the problem is, but next time, if there's a next time, I'll get plug-in microphone and earphones and.
You're for sure. Don't worry about it.
That's the whole thing. I have never experienced this in the year that I've been doing StreamYard's lives. I've never had this echo problem like this, or the problem you're having with a very low volume. No idea what's happening, and I got to play around with it to make sure that it's not me that's doing this for some reason.
It's something weird with Jim and Randy because we had the problem when Jim wasn't here through Randy's computer. But the really weird thing is when Jim is unmuted while Randy is unmuted, and there's horrific feedback from one of them. That's the weird thing. Yes, sorry, Randy, over to you.
Randy, go.
Guys, I'm sorry I have to run a little bit early,
That's okay.
That's okay.
but I really enjoyed being here, and I didn't want to just log off unannounced.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to see you, Randy. There, now, I guess I could maybe keep my mic on now.
Yeah, I think. No.
No?
I think perhaps what would be, I don't know if it's better to, like, it's been going almost an hour, is maybe to stop the live.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's
we can
about
chat off out of the live, and it won't bother anybody if we have a little bit of feedback. So we can still chat for a bit and see if we can work out the issue maybe, and then for next week, we'll have you back on, Jim, of course.
Who's going to do? Yeah, okay. Well, let's just call it a day. We've been on just about 56 minutes.
Oh, just I want to say to Zap, because his comment, the Discord link is in the description of my announcement video. If you go to my channel's app, you'll find it there.
I just want to say thank you to you guys for inviting me. I mean, that was great. I feel like a member of the Three Musketeers now, the Four Musketeers. It's just, thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, but don't disappear.
Don't disappear. We'll get off the live and we'll play around a bit and see if we can figure this out.
Sounds good.
So everyone in the comments, in the chat room, thank you for sticking with us with the technical difficulties, and hopefully next week there will not be any. Have a good day, everyone.